Architect Sarah Chen first noticed the impossible window during her structural assessment of the Blackwood Building on a bitter February morning in 1995, when Denver's downtown renovation project required detailed surveys of every commercial structure slated for historical preservation. Standing on the third floor of the aging office building, she stared at a window that violated every principle of architectural design she had learned during her 15 years in the profession. The window appeared on an interior wall that should have faced nothing but the adjacent Hartley building, separated by a gap of perhaps 18 inches between structures. Yet through this window, Sarah could see a view that belonged to no recognizable part of Denver's downtown core. Rolling hills covered with prairie grass, a dirt road winding through countryside that had vanished beneath concrete and steel decades earlier, and a sky that seemed perpetually locked in the golden hour before sunset. Sarah's survey partner, structural engineer Marcus Webb, had been documenting the building's load-bearing elements when Sarah called him over to examine her discovery. Marcus approached the window with the methodical skepticism of someone who had spent 20 years solving construction puzzles. But his professional composure cracked as he realized what they were witnessing. The window frame appeared to be original to the building's 1923 construction, featuring the same oak trim and brass hardware found throughout the Blackwood's upper floors. The glass showed the subtle waves and imperfections characteristic of early 20th century manufacturing. Yet the view beyond defied physical possibility. Marcus pressed his face to the glass and confirmed that the adjacent Hartley building was completely invisible, replaced by an expansive rural landscape that belonged to Colorado's territorial period. Sarah retrieved her camera and photographed the window from multiple angles, hoping to document the optical illusion for her assessment report. When the film was developed 3 days later, every photograph showed only blank white space where the impossible view should have been. The camera had captured the window frame and surrounding wall perfectly, but the glass appeared completely opaque, reflecting nothing and revealing nothing. Marcus suggested they examine the exterior of the building to understand how the window could provide views that contradicted physical reality. They descended to street level and walked the narrow alley between the Blackwood and Hartley buildings, measuring the gap that separated the structures. The space was exactly 17 inches wide, barely enough for maintenance access, and completely enclosed by brick walls on both sides. No window was visible from the exterior of either building. Their investigation revealed that the window existed only from the interior perspective. Building blueprints from 1923, stored in Denver's municipal archives, showed no window on the third-floor interior wall where Sarah had made her discovery. The architectural drawings depicted a solid wall designed to support the building's steel frame, with no provision for fenestration that would serve no practical purpose in the narrow space between structures. Sarah interviewed the building's current tenants, hoping to find others who had noticed the impossible window. Most had never paid attention to what they assumed was a decorative architectural detail. But several long-term occupants provided accounts that deepened the mystery surrounding the unexplained fenestration. Harold Morrison, who had operated an insurance office on the third floor for 18 years, described the window as a source of unusual comfort during stressful workdays. He would often pause during difficult phone conversations to gaze through the glass at the peaceful rural landscape, finding that the unchanging view of grassland and distant mountains helped calm his nerves. Harold had never questioned why the window showed countryside instead of urban Denver, accepting it as a pleasant quirk of an older building. Jennifer Liu, whose accounting firm had occupied a corner office for 12 years, revealed that the window's view changed with the seasons, despite the fact that downtown Denver remained perpetually urban. She had watched snow fall on the prairie grass during winter months and witnessed wildflowers bloom across the hills each spring. The dirt road that wound through the landscape showed wagon ruts during some seasons and remained smooth during others, as if different periods of history were cycling through the same geographical space. Sarah's research into the Blackwood Building's construction history revealed that the structure had been built on the site of the old Frontier Hotel, a wooden building that had served travelers and merchants during Denver's early territorial days. The hotel had burned to the ground in 1889, taking with it the lives of 7 guests who had been trapped in upper floor rooms when the fire spread with devastating speed through the building's timber frame. City records from the 1880s described the Frontier Hotel as featuring panoramic windows on its upper floors, offering guests spectacular views of the Colorado countryside before urban development transformed the landscape. The hotel's 3rd floor had been particularly prized by visitors who wanted to observe the prairie and mountain vistas that define the territory's natural beauty. Sarah realized that the impossible window might be connected to the Frontier Hotel's former existence, somehow preserving the view that guests had once enjoyed from rooms that occupied the same physical space as the current Blackwood Building. The window appeared to function as a temporal portal, allowing present-day observers to see the landscape as it had existed during the hotel's operational period. Marcus supported Sarah's theory by documenting unusual electromagnetic readings near the window. His instruments detected energy patterns that suggested some form of dimensional overlap, as if 2 different time periods were occupying the same location simultaneously. The readings were strongest during the late afternoon hours, when the view through the window showed its characteristic golden hour lighting that never seemed to advance towards sunset. Sarah decided to conduct extended observation of the window to document any changes in the view or variations in the temporal displacement she suspected was occurring. She established a monitoring station on the 3rd floor, visiting the building each day for several weeks to record detailed descriptions of what she observed through the impossible fenestration. Her notes revealed that the window showed the same geographical area across different historical periods. Some days featured pristine prairie with no signs of human habitation, while others showed the dirt road with evidence of wagon traffic and occasional travelers on horseback. During one particularly remarkable observation session, Sarah watched a stagecoach travel along the road, carrying passengers dressed in clothing that suggested the 1870s or 1880s. The most significant discovery came when Sarah realized that the window's view corresponded to documented historical events in Denver's territorial period. On days when she observed increased traffic along the dirt road, her research revealed that the dates corresponded to known arrivals of supply wagons or mail coaches that had served the early settlement. The window appeared to be showing actual historical moments rather than generic scenes from the past. Marcus began experiencing unusual phenomena during their extended observation period, while Sarah focused on documenting the visual elements of the window's impossible view. Marcus became aware of sounds that seemed to emanate from beyond the glass. He reported hearing distant conversations, the creak of wagon wheels, and the sounds of horses moving along the dirt road. These auditory elements were audible only when standing directly in front of the window, as if the temporal displacement affected multiple senses. The breakthrough in their investigation came when Sarah noticed a figure in the window's landscape who appeared to be observing them from the historical period. An elderly man dressed in frontier clothing had been standing near the dirt road for 3 consecutive days, appearing to stare directly through the window at Sarah and Marcus. Unlike the other figures they had observed, this man remained stationary and seemed aware of their presence across the temporal divide. Sarah attempted to communicate with the figure by holding up written signs and gesturing toward the window. The elderly man responded by removing his hat and pointing toward a specific location along the dirt road. His gestures became increasingly urgent over several days, as if he was trying to convey important information about something that required immediate attention. Marcus suggested they research the historical records more thoroughly to identify the elderly man and understand what he might be trying to communicate. Their investigation led them to newspaper accounts from 1888 describing the search for missing travelers who had disappeared while traveling the road that passed near the Frontier Hotel. The search had been led by a local guide named Thomas Brennan, whose physical description matched the elderly man they had been observing through the window. According to the historical accounts, Brennan had discovered the remains of the missing travelers in a ravine that wasn't visible from the main road. His discovery had led to the identification of bandits who had been robbing and murdering people traveling between Denver and the mountain mining camps. Brennan's testimony had resulted in the arrest and conviction of the criminals, ending a series of disappearances that had terrorized the territorial community. Sarah realized that Thomas Brennan was trying to communicate information about the location where he had discovered the victims of the historical crimes. She researched the current ownership of the land that would correspond to Brennan's discovery site and found that it was scheduled for development as part of Denver's urban expansion project. Construction was planned to begin within 2 weeks. Working with Marcus, Sarah contacted the development company and requested an archaeological survey of the site before construction commenced. Her request was initially dismissed as unnecessary delay, but her credentials as the project's historical preservation architect gave weight to her concerns about potential historical significance. The archaeological survey revealed human remains at the exact location Thomas Brennan had indicated through the window. The discovery led to a full investigation that uncovered evidence of multiple victims from the 1880s crime spree, along with personal artifacts that provided closure for families whose ancestors had disappeared during that violent period of Denver's history. Following the archaeological discovery, the elderly figure of Thomas Brennan disappeared from the window's view. Sarah and Marcus continued their observations for several more weeks, but the urgent pointing and hat-waving gestures ceased. The window continued to show historical scenes from the territorial period, but the interactive element that had allowed communication across time appeared to have concluded with the completion of Brennan's mission. Sarah's final assessment report included careful documentation of the window's existence, while omitting specific details about its temporal displacement properties. She recommended that the window be preserved as a unique architectural feature during the Blackwood Building's renovation, ensuring that future tenants would continue to have access to the impossible view that connected Denver's present to its historical past. The renovation preserved the window exactly as Sarah and Marcus had found it, though new tenants rarely pay attention to what they assume is a decorative element with unusual glass that creates interesting light effects. The accounting firm that currently occupies the 3rd floor occasionally mentions to visitors that the window provides a unique perspective on Denver's development, though none of the current occupants seem aware that they are literally looking into the city's territorial past. Sarah has moved on to other preservation projects throughout Colorado, but she returns annually to observe the window and document any changes in its temporal display. Marcus continues his structural engineering practice while maintaining detailed records of the electromagnetic readings he detected during their investigation. Together, they have created a private archive documenting their discovery, understanding that some phenomena require careful stewardship rather than public revelation. The window that shouldn't be there continues to offer its impossible view to anyone with the curiosity to look closely and the patience to understand what they are seeing. It stands as a reminder that some architecture transcends mere construction, creating openings between different periods of time that allow the past to remain accessible to those who know where to look. In a city that has grown rapidly and sometimes carelessly, erasing much of its historical character, the window preserves a connection to the landscape and community that existed before urban development transformed the Colorado Prairie into a modern metropolitan area. This was another tale from the SDF Horror Vault. If you felt the chill tonight, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. New stories open soon. And remember, the vault is always waiting.